We're now joined by Christian Fuscarino, Executive Director, Garden State Equality. Christian, good to see you.
Nice seeing you again. Thank you for having me on.
And we'll be back in the studio, I promise, at some point. But Christian, let me ask you this. The LGBTQ plus community, disproportionately affected, impacted by COVID as we tape in the middle of May?
Yes, the LGBTQ community has been hit hard by COVID, both from a mental health perspective and from a health disparities perspective. Any community that has health disparities had a harder year this past year than the general population. And that's saying a lot because everybody had a very difficult year. But for those who have a less likely chance to have a primary care physician, this was a very difficult year. And we know from studies that came out of California that LGBTQ people, non-white LGBTQ people were twice as likely to test positive for COVID.
By the way, as we put up your website, I did not give you a chance to describe what Garden State Equality is. Tell everyone.
Sure. Garden State Equality is New Jersey's largest LGBTQ organization. We serve the community in all 21 counties. We're in high schools, middle schools, hospital systems, workplaces, ensuring that there's lived equality, because we've done a great job getting equality in the law, but there's still so much to do so that people can experience that equality in their everyday lives.
You know, the term social determinants of health is used a lot. We have healthcare leaders, hospital executives who talk about it a lot. What does it mean to you, and how does it relate to the constituency you're most concerned about?
Well, for the LGBTQ community, there are a lot of specific health services that are needed. And for a long time, people needed to travel into New York City or Philadelphia out of New Jersey just to find those basic care and resources. Thanks to the folks at RWJ Barnabas, there's been a lot of strides in the state to make sure that we offer these services within our state's borders so that people don't need to travel outside. And that's been wonderful. So in Somerset, they've opened up the first full service LGBTQ health clinic. In Asbury Park, we now have an FQHC that serves the LGBTQ community. And those service providers are growing so that way, you know, regardless of what county you live in, you can drive within 30 minutes and find some basic care and resources that are important to you.
Okay. Talk about different ways that people are affected. Christian, by the way, you mentioned RWJ Barnabas Health, a significant supporter of public broadcasting, to disclose that. Christian, this is an interesting question on homelessness. How does homelessness play into the LGBTQ community and COVID?
40% of homeless youth identify as LGBTQ. That's a
wait, 40%?
40% of homeless youth identify as LGBTQ. That's, you know, any given year. It's the highest rate of youth is from the LGBTQ community. Unfortunately, this last year, young people who are from homes that are not supportive and loving saw themselves homeless. It's devastating to see this happen. And the problem is because for a lot of young people, they go to school, and school can be their safe place. You know, LGBTQ youth face, unfortunately, some of the highest rates of bullying in school. But for those who are coming from homes that are not loving and supportive, school is that way out. And with COVID and everybody quarantining together, we got to know each other a lot more this year. And unfortunately, parents who decide that they won't love their child simply because of who their child loves, they saw those youth out on the streets.
Are we still there, Christian, in the place you just described?
Yeah, I think it's easy here in New Jersey, right? This is like a bubble where we have some of the best LGBTQ equality in the nation. But these instances of inequality and hatred still exist in our state, unfortunately. We also had the unfortunate reminder with the Trump administration, where it was just setback after setback for the LGBTQ community. All the progress that we made under the Obama years, a lot of that was pushed back. And now, fortunately, with President Biden, we're seeing some of those issues of equality put back into place. We're moving forward, and hopefully for transgender individuals who have never really experienced equality, even under the Obama years, we're making a lot of progress for that part of our community as well.
You know, it's interesting with Pete Buttigieg heading up the Department of as the Secretary of Transportation, if I'm not mistaken. There's also a significant appointment in state government in New Jersey as it relates to representation of the LGBTQ community, particularly at the Department of Environmental Protection. Sean is someone we know very well. Tell everyone who he is and why he matters so much.
Yeah, we're so fortunate to have Sean LaTourette lead our DEP, the first openly gay person in the entire nation to lead an environmental protection agency. It's a big deal. Here in New Jersey, a state with no LGBTQ representation in the legislature, it's more important than ever that we have representation. And thankfully, Governor Murphy has ensured that his cabinet is representative of the diversity of New Jersey. We know that Sean joined Commissioner Sue Fulton, who leads the NBC, as the second LGBTQ member of his cabinet.
Before we let you go, tell folks why that matters. Why that matters that people who represent different communities serve in prominent positions in government?
In a lot of ways, LGBTQ people are invisible, right? We know that from a data standpoint, where we saw under the Trump administration not including LGBTQ people in the most recent census. We were supposed to be included. Now it's going to be another 10 years before that population is counted. Mm-hmm. We know from LGBTQ inclusive curriculum in schools that when LGBTQ youth don't see themselves represented in the lessons that they learn, there's higher rates of bullying. But when you teach those lessons, that way young people can see themselves reflected in the people that they look up to.
You know, before I let you go, Christian, I normally don't do this, but I'm going to just share this to put things in perspective. Back in another lifetime, before you were even born, I think, in 1985, in the state legislature, when I was there for a short period of time, together with a group of other legislators, we sponsored what was called then the Gay Rights Bill, which was simply anti-discrimination. You could not discriminate against people based on their sexual orientation for housing and employment. It took 7 years, and those of us who were involved in that initiative were accused of pretty horrific things. But 7 years later, that bill became law. The reason I mention it is, while we still have serious problems and challenges, we've made real progress.
We have made tremendous progress, and it's a large thanks to those who have paved the way. So thank you for your advocacy there. Unfortunately, we still
shouldn't have been so difficult, but go ahead.
We still have nearly 30 states in the nation where LGBTQ people aren't protected and can be fired simply because of who they love or how they identify. And so that's why it's so important to pass the Equality Act. We have a lot of national and global companies headquartered here in New Jersey, and their employees here might be safeguarded and protected, and yet in other states they're not.
Yeah, we think we've made progress. We still have such a long way to go. Christian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. Be well.
You got it. I'm Steve Adubato. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by PSE&G, RWJ Barnabas Health, Bank of America, NJM Insurance Group, the New Jersey Education Association, the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities Clean Energy Program, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, and by the Fidelco Group. Promotional support provided by CIANJ and Commerce Magazine, and by AM 970 The Answer.
It's time to save, New Jersey. New Jersey's Clean Energy Program is your guide to rebates and incentives that can save hundreds, even thousands of dollars for businesses and residents throughout the state by making smarter energy choices. Start today with an energy assessment. We're lighting the way to a clean energy future. Join in at njcleanenergy.com or call 866-NJ-SMART.